7 silent warnings from your soul you should never ignore. Have you ever noticed how loud the world has become? We scroll. We chase. We perform. Our lives are filled with constant motion, tasks, notifications, expectations, all demanding our attention, all keeping us distracted. But beneath all that noise, there's something else, a quiet voice. Not from others, but from within. It's not dramatic. It doesn't shout. But it's older than fear, deeper than logic. It's the voice of your soul. And most of us, we've learned to silence it. We tune it out with busyness. We bury it beneath responsibilities. We numb it with comfort and approval. But here's the truth, the more we ignore that whisper, the further we drift from the person we were meant to become. This isn't about being spiritual or philosophical. It's about being honest. There are moments, rare, powerful moments, when the noise fades just long enough for us to feel something real. A tightening in the chest. A flash of discomfort. A question we can't quite answer. That's not weakness. That's a signal. In this video, I want to share 7 silent warnings from your soul. Subtle messages that often go unnoticed, but are never meaningless. Warnings that, if ignored, don't go away. They grow. They harden. And eventually, they pull us into lives that feel disconnected, hollow, and performative. But if we choose to listen, everything begins to change. So stay with me. Not for the performance, but for the quiet truth underneath it. Let's learn to hear what we were never taught to listen to. Let's begin. 1. The feeling you're playing a role you didn't choose. Have you ever felt like you're just acting? You smile when you're supposed to. You nod, laugh, perform, you do all the right things. But inside, something feels off. Like you're wearing a costume that doesn't quite fit. Like you're living out a script someone else wrote for you. This isn't depression. It's not laziness. It's not failure. It's rebellion, a quiet protest from within. Your soul is telling you, this isn't me. We've all been taught to fit in, to seek approval, to keep the peace. But there's a price. And that price is authenticity. Over time, if we keep silencing ourselves to be what others expect, we lose the thread of who we truly are. Epictetus once said, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. But how many of us actually do that? Instead, we adorn ourselves for the world, not for truth, but for applause. And then we wonder why we feel empty when we're alone. That tightness in your chest, that restless ache when no one's watching, it's not weakness. It's your soul knocking, begging you to stop pretending, to take off the mask and return to who you were before the world told you who to be. So ask yourself, am I living a life I chose, or one I was handed? Because the further you drift from your truth, the louder that silent warning becomes. And it won't stop, not until you do something about it. 2. The unspoken resentment toward people closest to you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that the more you give, the more people expect? The more you bend, the more they lean. And somewhere in that silent giving, something inside you begins to sour. You still smile. You say it's fine. You keep the peace. But under the surface, resentment brews. And you can't quite explain it, because these are the people you love. Friends, family, colleagues. So why the bitterness? It's not really about them. It's a message from your soul. You've abandoned your boundaries. See, when you constantly say yes to avoid conflict, when you carry others while ignoring your own needs, you begin to feel invisible, even to yourself. You're not being kind anymore, you're being erased. Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not you, do not become it. But how often do we betray who we are just to keep things calm on the outside? We trade truth for approval, authenticity for belonging. And then we wonder why the light inside us feels dim. That tightness in your chest when you agree, but your gut screams no? That's your soul trying to protect you. It's not just discomfort, it's your inner compass. begging you to return to your integrity. Because when you abandon yourself for peace, you don't get peace. You get quiet resentment. And pain unspoken? It becomes poison. So maybe it's time to stop blaming others, and start honoring your own limits. 3. The sudden loss of passion or interest. One day, you wake up, and the things that once lit you up, don't. The passion, the drive, the goals you used to chase, they feel empty now. What once gave you purpose now feels like a burden. You go through the motions, but the spark is gone. And you wonder, what's wrong with me? But this isn't burnout. It's not laziness. It's not even failure. It's a sacred warning. Your soul is trying to tell you that you've outgrown the path you're on. That what once served you, no longer does. And that's not a crisis. That's transformation. Seneca said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But when the present feels hollow, when you no longer recognize yourself in the life you've built, it's your inner self asking you to pause, to reevaluate, to shift. This kind of loss, the fading of passion, is uncomfortable. Because it asks us to let go of what we thought we wanted. It pushes us to step into uncertainty, into new beginnings we didn't plan for. But that emptiness you feel? It's not a void, it's space being made for something truer, something deeper. The Stoics didn't fear change, they embraced it. They knew that life is a constant unfolding. And the soul, it always knows when it's time to evolve. So don't cling to dead goals just because they used to matter. If your heart no longer beats for the path you're on, maybe it's because a new one is calling. Listen closely. Because sometimes losing your passion is how you find your purpose. 4. Heightened sensitivity to negativity. Have you noticed lately that certain things drain you faster than they used to? A conversation that feels heavy, a room filled with gossip, a social feed soaked in outrage. You don't have the energy for it anymore, and maybe that worries you. Maybe you think you're becoming too sensitive, too fragile, too soft. But let me offer you a different view. You're not getting weaker, you're growing wiser. Your soul is evolving. And it's starting to reject what once poisoned you quietly. This instinct to recoil from negativity, from drama, from judgment, from chaos, is not weakness. It's a silent alarm. A boundary forming around your peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And you're starting to realize, what you allow in, shapes you. The Stoics taught that our mind is a fortress. And just like a fortress, it needs gates. It needs guards. Not everything deserves entry. This sensitivity is not something to suppress. It's something to respect. It means your inner self is starting to recognize what nourishes you, and what contaminates you. And that matters. So don't apologize for walking away from environments that feel heavy. Don't second-guess your urge to protect your peace. You're not becoming intolerant, you're becoming aligned. This isn't isolation, it's discernment. And it's one of the clearest signs that your soul is waking up, and fighting for your attention. 5. The urge to withdraw and reflect. There comes a moment, maybe late at night, maybe in the middle of a crowded room, when something inside you whispers, step back. Not because you've failed, not because you're weak, but because your soul needs space, stillness, distance from the noise. It's easy to mistake this urge to withdraw as isolation, avoidance, or detachment. But in truth, it's something far more powerful. It's self-preservation. It's growth. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And in the silence, away from distractions, we start to see just how much of our suffering is self-created. Just how much noise we've allowed to flood our inner world. The urge to withdraw isn't a sign you're giving up. It's a sign you're finally ready to go within, to confront what's real, to hear what you've been too busy to notice. In that quiet, we find clarity. In that solitude, we find strength. The Stoics believed that true power comes not from the crowd, but from the ability to stand alone, firm, grounded, undisturbed. So if your soul is asking for space, give it. Don't explain. Don't defend it. Honor it, because the world may praise performance. But wisdom is found in the pause. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step away. 6. Constant inner dialogue that questions everything. Have you ever caught yourself asking questions you can't shake? Why am I doing this? What's the point? Is this all there is? These thoughts don't come loudly. They arrive in quiet moments, between meetings, in traffic, just before sleep. And they linger. Not because something's wrong with you, but because something within you is trying to wake you up. This isn't overthinking. It's not anxiety. It's awareness. Your soul is challenging the autopilot life. The one where you chase goals you never questioned. Where you fulfill expectations you never chose. Where your days are full, but your heart feels strangely hollow. We often dismiss these thoughts. We label them as weakness. But the Stoics wouldn't. In fact, they believed that self-inquiry is a form of wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote endlessly in his journal, not to share with others, but to remind himself, am I truly living according to my nature? Or am I just surviving in disguise? When your mind starts to ask difficult questions, don't shut it down. Don't numb it with distractions. Sit with it. Listen to it, because that voice is not your enemy. It's your compass. And if you ignore it too long, you risk waking up one day successful in the eyes of the world, but a stranger to yourself. So instead of running from the questions, lean into them. They're not there to pull you down. They're there to bring you home. 7. Emotional numbness in moments that should matter. You ever find yourself in a moment that should move you, but you feel nothing? A birthday, a reunion, a sunset, a goodbye. You smile. You go through the motions. But deep down, there's a dullness. Like your emotions are behind glass. Like you're watching your own life from a distance. This isn't you being cold. It's not that you don't care. It's spiritual fatigue. When you live out of alignment for too long, saying yes when you mean no, pretending when you want truth, pleasing instead of expressing, your soul begins to shut down its signals. Not to hurt you, but to protect you. It's like an emergency mode. Emotional numbness is not failure. It's your soul saying, I can't keep doing this. The Stoics understood this quiet warning. They believed that life's value is found in presence, not performance. Seneca said, life is long if you know how to use it. But when you're emotionally disconnected from your own moments, time slips through your fingers. That numbness you feel isn't the absence of feeling. It's the presence of suppressed truth. It's your soul asking for reconnection, to meaning, to stillness, to yourself. So pause. Feel what arises. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it's messy. Because your ability to feel deeply is a strength, not a liability. And maybe the real reason you feel numb is because the version of life you're living was never meant for you in the first place. Listen before it's too late. All these signs, the emptiness, the resentment, the fading passion, the discomfort with negativity, the urge to withdraw, the inner questioning, the emotional numbness, they're not random. They're not flaws. And they're definitely not weaknesses. They are whispers from your soul. In a world that rewards noise, appearance, and speed, these quiet signals are easy to miss. But ignore them long enough, and the soul begins to shut down, not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion. The Stoics taught us to observe life, to reflect daily, and to live in alignment with nature, our own nature. Because nothing is more tragic than success without self. A full schedule and an empty spirit. So maybe the discomfort you're feeling isn't a problem to fix, but a truth to face. Maybe you were never meant to play that role. Maybe those expectations were never yours to carry. Maybe the path you're on isn't the one your soul chose. It's the one you inherited. And now, it's time to return. Not with noise, not with panic, but with presence, with stillness, with courage. Because the most powerful transformations don't begin with a roar. They begin with a whisper, the kind you're hearing now. So take this as a reminder: you don't need to burn your life down. You just need to stop abandoning yourself. And if this message spoke to something deep inside you, you're not alone. Subscribe and join a community that values silence over spectacle, depth over distraction, and truth over tradition. Together, we rise above the noise and return to what matters most.